Welcome back to the Tommy Brideson Show. Now, today I want to talk about hypertrophy exercises, in particular your accessories and how to get the most out of them if you come from like a powerlifting background and a strength training background. Now, anyone that is in the strength world, our key metric of success is often adding weight to the bar and progressing that week by week, block by block to a point where it gets heavier and heavier. Now, that's given, that's awesome. Now, when you're approaching your accessory exercises, you need to wear a slightly different hat. There are so many ways that you can drive hypertrophy adaptations. And, the main one is through volume. You want to be increasing the amount of work and the amount of output that you're doing. Now, if you're stuck in the mentality of, okay, each and every week I need to put weight on the bar, what's going to end up happening is you're going to bypass the muscle work that you need to be doing. And it's going to turn into a game of just adding weight and, not really getting the contractions that you should be getting, not getting and pushing the fatigue to the muscles and pushing the muscles to the point where, you're a couple of reps shy of failure because it's just then adding weight to the bar. So we need to take a slightly different approach to our accessory exercises than what we do our main lifts. And, you really want to be doing it in a way that allows you to get a really strong sense of mind-muscle connection, a strong sense of fatigue and acute contraction in the area and in the exercises that you're trying to do. If you take this approach with your training, you're going to get so much more out of your accessory exercises. Now, if we look at, let's use pendulum squat, for instance, it's a really harsh exercise. The range of movement that you go through at the knee, at the hip, at the ankle, it's quite a harsh movement. So that type of exercise, I would be way more inclined to adding reps, adding sets, and potentially even adding a band on so that you have extra resistance. Now, yes, you're not going to be adding as much weight to the bar, but the quality of the movement and the quality of the contractions in the muscles that you're targeting are going to be so much better. So, quite often in a hypertrophy block, a hybrid sort of strength hypertrophy block, you'll see that, you've still got your main lifts and your secondary lifts, but they get pushed as normal. You kind of want to simmer those around that sort of 70 to 85% mark. And that's where you're really working on the skill. You're really working on your technique and the components of the lifting that you're trying to bring up. But then when you move into your accessory exercises, you just need to take that mindset with it where you're you're building muscle. It's no longer about strength. It's about targeted exercises towards a certain area. And, if you add too much weight, you're just going to default and you're going to bypass what you're trying to get out of the particular exercise and the particular movement, and you're just going to go back to then essentially strength training. So, what I want to do now is just talk about a few different ways that you can add volume to your training in a really kind of sequential type movement. Now, if you look at, straight sets, so you start off in the gym, if you do 4 sets of 8 reps, just a very typical set and rep scheme. If you start off there, for instance, and you start off there and say you do 5 or 6 weeks of that, you're going to get to a certain point where you're going to need to challenge that adaptation. So there's so many ways that you can add variables to this. You could add sets, you could add reps. What I like to do is start off on a straight set block and then move that into something that's called a superset, where you're pairing 2 exercises together. So then you have a few different options there. You can be pairing the same muscle groups together, which is called an agonist set, or you could be pairing opposing muscle groups. So you could then go, okay, well, I'm going to do a quad-based exercise followed by a hamstring-based exercise. You're going to be able to get a lot of work done in a very short period of time. You're going to get a lot of frequency there. Okay. So you can basically go from a model of a straight set and then move it into a superset style method. And then from there, you have even more options. You can move into pre-fatigue, post-fatigue. So what pre-fatigue is, say my main movement was going to be a pendulum squat or a hack squat. I could pre-fatigue my quads and potentially hamstrings, depending on how you're doing it, but you can pre-fatigue the muscles that you're going to use in the main lift itself. Now, what that does it decreases the amount of load that you can use on the other exercises, but that's a really beneficial thing because you're pushing yourself closer towards that failure point and you're driving that volume adaptation. So you still get a really good, honest amount of work in, but you're doing it in a way that's pushing you closer to failure, which is what a really big driver of hypertrophy is effort. Okay, so you can do different types of things, different types of methods that will allow you to stack on volume as you go. So that's your pre-fatigue, but you can also then do post-fatigue. Like say for instance, you jumped under a hack squat and you did a set of 8. You could then follow that up and then get on a leg extension, which is a really simple movement, and just push that for 15, 20 reps to a point where your legs are screaming. Okay, so these are ways that you can really start to develop different layers of hypertrophy or different layers of volume, which is going to help with your hypertrophy. And the cool thing about it is it's not just about then stacking on weight, it's about stacking on the volume. So when you're looking at like a strength-based exercise program, obviously the goal is to put more weight on the bar. But when you're looking at hypertrophy, you want to taper up the volume as the phases of training progress. So you've got like an opposing relationship here. So the cool thing about that is you can get some really good, honest work done. And quite often, because your rest breaks are quite short in these hypertrophy-based workouts, you're absolutely cooked, but you're getting in and you're getting out of the gym in a really short and efficient amount of time. The thing is with that is as well, say you've just come off the back of a really like heavy strength block. Having that mental shift and that mental break away from lifting heavy can actually be quite refreshing. It can be a really good thing where you jump into these exercises, you push and blight, it feels really good, you're building some muscle mass, but what it does, it actually gives your joints and your tendons an opportunity to really just like take a step back from things, and it pushes all that load back into the muscle. So it's a really good way to start to deload different components of the body system as well. Now you can get really creative with like different types of training methods, but all I really want to sort of point out here is that you've got to sort of take your mindset when you're training, say you're training for strength, you've got to take your mindset off pushing intensity when you're like stepping into your accessory exercises. You really want to take that mindset away from intensity, and you want to think about, how do I keep the weight and the load in the target muscle areas? How do I do so in a way that's going to allow me to stack volume on and push myself to a point where I'm really fatigued? Because that is what's going to drive the adaptation of hypertrophy. Pair that up with really good recovery, pair that up with great nutrition, and it's going to be an epically successful training program. And that's it for today. I'll see you guys on the next episode.